Even though the Cowboys defense was the story of the game against the New Orleans Saints, we know that the offense has to be better. Dak Prescott knows it as well, and he even teased a potential fix moving forward. Here we go. What is up, everyone, and welcome to A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central, and catching up with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with quick-hitting videos such as this one. Welcome, everyone, into the show. We are still dwelling on the Saints' loss a little bit. It's not going to be too long until we move on to the Baltimore Ravens and what should be a huge Week 3. But before we do that, there's so much to unpack from that loss to the Saints. And yesterday, we discussed the whole DeMarvion Overshown thing with the Cowboys. Why did they not use him? By the way, I had another tweet on it over at Mau NFL. That's MAU NFL if you want to check it out, with a very weird quote from Mike Zimmer. But now we are looking at the offense. So that's what we're going to do, because we also need some answers there, right? We also need to know what went wrong with the Cowboys that went 0 for 3 in the red zone. Inexplicably, just no answers from a team that has Dak Prescott at quarterback, CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver, and an offensive line that we thought at least was going to be slightly better in the run game. But man, there are some troubles. There are some problems with this offense right now, and we're going to talk about it today. The big one, I think, aside from the red zone, is that how is this offense going about getting big plays? Because there were some big plays on Sunday. A lot of them were not exactly pretty, right? Like there was one 3rd and long where Dak is about to get sacked, just pitches it to Ezekiel Elliott, and Zeke does his thing. He just runs with it vertically and gets the first down and more. There's the Jalen Tolbert throw to the right sideline where Dak Prescott just sees man coverage, single high safety, and he says, you know what? YOLO. Boom. Just a deep shot to Jalen Tolbert. One-on-one, contested ball. Go fight for it, Tolbert. And he does. Gets it. It's a catch. Move the chains. That's all fine and well, right? Like, you want the Cowboys to be able to do that stuff. Both the improvisation when everything is going wrong, like with the Zeke play, and you want Dak to be able to trust Jalen Tolbert on a one-on-one look such as that one. However, other than that, I just don't feel like the Cowboys are doing a good enough job of manufacturing these big plays, right? And we saw the Saints do that against the Cowboys pretty well, too. Like with the play action, the shot to Shaheed, you're doing a lot of that. And in the running game, that's a whole different story. But they're also getting a lot of big plays in the run game. The Cowboys are simply not, and I'm not very optimistic about them changing that. But we're going to save that until later. First, let's talk about the passing game. And Dak talked about it with reporters. He even kind of teased at a potential fix for the lack of big plays. And I'll read to you the quote from him post-game, because Dak was talking about how big plays, you don't have to be perfect for them to come through. He was talking about how everyone has to do their job, and that's how you get big plays in the NFL. But ironically, he then said that he needed to do more, and here's what I mean. He said, and I quote, "Part of it for me, I think, maybe I felt like I was at this point last year. It was a lot later in the year when I did it, but going back to using my feet more, whether it's scrambling, extending the plays to throw the ball down the field, or maybe just going on and getting a couple yards and getting down. I wouldn't say it's about being perfect, but understanding that I do have that ability, and that is a huge part of our offense, got to bring it back to life, I think." So many things to break down, I think, from that comment there for Dak. I'll start with the fact that I'm weirded out by the whole approach of, oh, we're struggling, so now I'm going to use my legs. When you're saying it's a huge part of our offense, why are the Cowboys so hesitant to actually use Dak Prescott's legs? And it might be because of a fear of him getting hurt or something like that. But that was weird to me last year, right? Where the whole shift from not using Dak's legs to now we got to use them because we're in trouble. And it seems like we're going to have a repeat of that. Listen, I'm happy to get Dak Prescott on the move. I think, as Dak says, it's a huge part of the Cowboys' potential. And if I got to bet on Tolbert magically improving, or Brooks magically improving, or Schoonmaker, or whoever, if I have to bet on that over versus Dak Prescott using his legs and becoming a more dangerous QB, I'm betting on the latter, right? I'm betting on Dak, the 240 million quarterback, to get this done right, because I've seen him do it before, and I trust in him doing it again, right? I think about that Chargers game last year after the Cowboys lost to the 49ers, and CD was all pissed about it, and CD said that he wanted the ball more and that he didn't know the identity of the offense, blah, blah, blah. 1 week later, Dak is getting out of the pocket and just force-feeding CD and making things work. I think that wouldn't hurt his offense at all. But I do think, right, that it's odd that they got to turn that switch on. Like, they're almost hesitant to use Dak Prescott's legs. But anyways, I think that's the best way to go about fixing the lack of big plays in the passing game. But I got to tell you, there are some issues with the passing game, and I think it's mostly a personnel issue. I don't think that the Cowboys really trust Jalen Tolbert or Jalen Brooks. I'm not here to say that I blame them for it. I think after watching last week's game, you look at Brooks and you look at the thing about him tripping, and you look at him struggling as a run blocker in that Brandon Cooks play, and I don't blame them for not really trusting Jalen Brooks. And then with Tolbert, more of the same. He had that big catch on the right sideline, but there were some miscues from him as well. There was that drop. There was a Tyrann Mathieu play where he gets demolished, and you don't really see him fighting for the ball. I don't blame the Cowboys for not trusting them. Now, why do I say that they don't? I'm not trying to say that they think they're trash or anything like that. I'm just saying you had to replace Jake Ferguson in this game. And the personal grouping that the Cowboys really seemingly chose to do it was getting Kevontae Turpin and Deuce Vaughn next to Dak Prescott, right? Mike McCarthy talked about there being some RPOs built off of those packages. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it seemed like one of those games where the Cowboys had to come in with a creative answer, and it was that. Like, they were just doing the Deuce Vaughn thing. And by the way, that did not pan out pretty well. Like, I think Deuce got the majority of the bad blocking in the run game, honestly, in this one. But what I'm trying to say here is, I think that was the Cowboys' best adjustment that they had coming into this game, right? And suddenly you could argue that they preferred to do that over just feeding Tolbert, feeding Schoonmaker, even though Schoonmaker had a couple of early catches that I really liked. But I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of that, like, being the top answer that we saw for easy buttons, quote unquote, because there wasn't anything easy about them when the game actually started. But I think that the Cowboys need to figure out who is the number 3 weapon after CD and Cooks while Ferguson is out. Now, Ferguson might play Jerry Jones, and Stephen Jones alluded to it during the week, on 105.3 The Fan. So he might be back by week 3, but we got to see the week's worth of practice before we get to any conclusions. But my point here is there's got to be something else that the Cowboys do to give Dak Prescott easy buttons on this offense, because everything seemed pretty tough on him, honestly, on the red zone offense. Now, speaking of the red zone offense, I don't know, and the passing game, I don't know that the team also trusts its tackles at this stage. Twice in the red zone, you saw Terrence Steele be an issue, right? Red zone trip number 1, 3rd and 10. This is after the Cowboys run the ball and after they do the Brandon Cooks run where Jalen Brooks fails his block. You get to 3rd and 10. They run some sort of 4 verticals where the inside receivers are stopping in the end zone. And Terrence Steele gets bitten badly in pass pro, leads to a sack. The red zone trip is over. Later, red zone trip number 2, Terrence Steele is once again bitten. Dak Prescott starts to escape. He suffers a strip sack. The Cowboys recover the ball, but it's still a fumble caused mostly by pass pro. Dak has to hold on to that ball, don't get me wrong, but the play is broken, firstly, by the pass pro. So by the time you get to the 3rd red zone trip of the game, you get to 3rd and 4. You get 2nd and 4, and Dak shoots a deep shot to CD Lamb in the end zone. That's where he gets leveled, and when we were expecting a flag and it didn't happen, you get to 3rd and 4, and the Cowboys start moving the pocket. And we talked about this in week 1. You got to give it to Mike McCarthy that in that particular game versus Myles Garrett, they had a clear plan to deal with the pass pro issues. But you're not facing Myles Garrett in week 2. And I think them moving the pocket, sure, is a good way to solve your pass pro issues. But what that meant was that on third down, on a got to have it play, you are moving the pocket and running 7-man protection and essentially just giving Dak Prescott one target in the red zone, right? In the end zone. Because it's just Jalen Tolbert running a corner route to the right. Because Dak is running to his right, and there's Tolbert. And sure, Brandon Cooks is coming from the backside, but mostly as a check down, or at least that's the only other option that Dak can go to at that point. It's a tough throw to make, right from the right to his left. Not easy while he's on the move. So what I'm saying is, I don't know that the Cowboys trust their receivers other than CeeDee and Cooks, and you got to figure out a way to get Cooks more touches in more dangerous looks. I'm going to sneeze. I didn't sneeze. All right, there you go. And then I don't know that they trust their tackles because Guyton and Terrence Steele were a problem at times. Now, I don't mean to be bad to knock Guyton because I really don't want to. He's a rookie. We knew about the growing pains. This is what that looks like. But that's a worry of mine moving forward. Like, how much does the pass pro woes really hold back the Cowboys' offense is basically my question. Now, let's talk about the running game. What went wrong with the running game? Man, what didn't, honestly? I could count plays where the blocking is bad. I could count plays where the running backs were picking the wrong lane. I could count plays where something was just off. And I got to tell you something. The biggest thing for me, and I'm going to show you some of them here just because I have them here loaded up. So I'm just going to share my screen here and show you what I'm looking at. Oh, man, I can't actually. Oh, yeah, I can. Never mind. Here we go. So this is Deuce Vaughn, for example, if I remember correctly, the order of these plays. This is Deuce Vaughn, man. I got to tell you, I don't know what I can ask of him here, right? Because Cooper Beebe and Terrence Steele are not really sustaining their blocks at the line of scrimmage. By the time he gets to the line of scrimmage, those blockers are freed up. Chase Young is as well on the backside. And I got to be fair with Deuce Vaughn. Like, this is not good blocking for him, if we're being totally honest. But yeah, at times it was the blocking. And I'm not going to go too deep into all of these plays, but we did see a lot of this where the blockers were not sustaining their guys, and by the time they got to the line of scrimmage, the holes were closed. But we also saw some weird decisions from the running backs. There was Ezekiel Elliott, for example, on the speed option. I don't have the timestamp for that one. Where I don't know why he just doesn't run to the corner. Even if he doesn't think he can get there, he just cuts back inside, and that makes no sense because there's no blockers there. There was a lot of that. That's my point. But my big thing about this running game from the Cowboys is that what are they doing that is special, right? Like, this is another Deuce Vaughn clip. They're just running inside. Sure, there's a fake pump draw in there to maybe catch the Saints sleeping a little bit and generate the explosive play. But I feel like the Cowboys are just running inside zone. They're running duo, and they're basically just betting on the Cowboys' offensive line, just leading them home up the field, through the middle of the field, And rarely do you see something like this. I'm going to go to the right stamp here. Rarely do we see just spin and pull, right? Like, CeeDee Lamb's going to block this defensive end. Terrence Steele and Cooper Beebe are going to pull into space. And that generates a relatively explosive play. I think it was 6 yards only. But, man, at this stage, just try to find these kind of plays, right? Because they did this once, and then that's over. Because the Cowboys don't do a whole lot of this. And you see the best offenses in the NFL do a little bit of counter, a little bit of power. They maybe do a lot of inside zone, but they do something else as well. They have some change-ups along the way that make them a little bit of a dangerous offense. I don't think the Cowboys have any of that, and that is kind of a big disappointment for me. And I know I'm ranting at this stage, but man, I just feel like the Cowboys don't trust their offensive tackles right now, and I'm not blaming them for it. I feel like they don't trust whoever is the number 3 wide receiver. Not blaming them for that either. I mean, maybe you can blame them for for this being the personnel. But you got to come up with better answers, is I think the big conclusion after the Saints game. Because they are, right? The Saints don't have a perfect offensive line, but they have something that works for them, and they're sticking with it. They're allowing Derek Carr to hit some easy buttons on their offense. The Cowboys are just, as usual, kind of depending on Dak Prescott to save them on third down. And whenever Dak Prescott misses a play in the red zone, like it takes one Dak Prescott miss for that red zone drive to feel like it's over, right? So there's no margin for error for your quarterback, and that's something that you don't see in most of these big-time offenses in the NFL. Moving forward, what I would like to see is a better way to get CD the ball. It's a better plan to get other players the ball and not just depend on Kevontae Turpin and Deuce Vaughn being on that field. But also give me a different running game, which is tough to ask in September, or just lean on Dak and just make this a pass-happy offense, as happy as it can be, because that running game is not going to work, what we've seen so far in the 2024 season. But ladies and gentlemen, obviously it's early. We'll see if the Cowboys adjust or maybe they don't. But in the meantime, we're going to keep enjoying some Cowboys football, and I'll keep seeing you here on Prime Time. Hit the like button for me. Hope that you enjoyed. Sorry if I got some rambling in there, but I'm just spitting out some thoughts on the Cowboys offense. Hit the like button. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.